Recording in progress. Okay. It's going to be a great time.
Oh boy.
Okay. Does that sound interesting and cool?
Damn, I look so good.
Let's just wing it. You ready?
4 hours later.
Dear Tech.
Sharp.
Oh, laughing hurts. Cut.
Hey, Dear Tech fam, welcome back to another episode of Dear Tech. And today we're asking, Dear Tech, how do I make the most of my LinkedIn? That is going to be a fun thing to talk about. I think most people in our industry have LinkedIn. Fran, want to kick us off? What do you think? Where do we start with this one?
Sure. That's even like a good, as you were saying that, I was like, who doesn't have LinkedIn? I feel like it's an essential tool if in the tech industry, if you want to apply to it really isn't required, but I feel like it is a industry cultural norm for our space. Like if you don't have a LinkedIn, someone would be like, that's weird, or why? I think it's such a common, like, unspoken rule in our space.
I think in the past, I thought it was like shady if you didn't have one.
Yeah.
Right? Like when I was, especially when I was like an agency, if someone's like, I don't have LinkedIn, we'd be like, what are you trying to hide? Kind of thing, right? Because it's like kind of like a cross reference of your legitimacy, because you have, there's like references on there and people talking about you and you're liking things and you're showing your industry experience to the world.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't put like, oh, I worked for, XYZ. I worked for Apple for 15 years and no one, everyone's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, for sure. You have like no connections from there or anything. Yeah, totally. Even in this day and age, like so many of the, let's start with like what LinkedIn is.
Sure.
And the different like capabilities and how it's utilized. So from my viewpoint, LinkedIn is a social professional platform and network to basically represent yourself in a digital forum and build your network, connect with other people, and connect with jobs. Do you agree? Anything to add on that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it started off more like a little bit more social-ish. It was like show your job, but it was like more social. But I think over the last maybe like decade and a half, LinkedIn really upped their game in terms of integrating, finding jobs, and getting companies on it. It was, I'd say maybe 12 years ago, it was more just for the candidates or just for the people. And over the last decade plus, it's been really much more integrated for companies. But yeah, definitely agree with what you said.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think there's so many different aspects that platforms utilize now. Like as a candidate, you are leveraging, typically in a lot of situations, leveraging the platform to build your digital profile and your digital resume so you can apply to jobs or connect with people and build your network. And then also if you are a company or a business, like you said, like you can build your digital presence on LinkedIn. You can talk about your company. You can post events that are happening. Like you're able to cultivate a persona and presence on LinkedIn so that applicants and candidates can go and do research and learn more about the company. So many companies and individuals too, I think, are utilizing LinkedIn now in terms of marketing and branding and their own personal interests and work that they are doing, whether it's professional or personal. And I feel like I have also seen too the platform sway a little more personal in the last like 5 or so years, like people showing more of their personal lives and their kind of full persona as a human outside of just their professional portfolio. I'll say in my opinion, so I'm 100% of the mindset, like you are a full human, like there's so many different facets of you outside of just your job and your career. But in my personal opinion, I solely utilize LinkedIn as a professional tool. Like I would not be one to share personal aspects of my life on the platform unless I think it's going to benefit my audience or some in some way, or it's a way for me to connect with people maybe in my professional network. I don't know how you feel about it, but sometimes I kind of see things that make me think about that.
I think on LinkedIn there's kind of like a battle about that, right? Like a
Mm.
lot of people are like, this is a professional like the area. Don't bring your own shit into this. And I think for me, I agree with you. Firstly, I want to start by saying that I think that it's a free platform. If people want to put what they want to put, fine.
Totally.
But at the same time, like sometimes I will read stuff on LinkedIn and I will be like, I don't give a shit. And it's maybe not the best thought process, but it's like I come to LinkedIn for a very specific purpose. And I think most people come to LinkedIn. Like you don't come to LinkedIn, you don't infinity scroll on LinkedIn just to pass time, right? Like some people
I
might.
definitely do sometimes on my app.
Well, that's because you're a very work focused person. But like, if you want to do that, you go on Instagram to like look at like memes and
Uh,
stuff, right? But
mm,
for LinkedIn, it's very much about for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's about what's happening in my industry, what's happening in my network, what's happening with work, who's getting laid off, who's getting work, who's getting jobs, stuff like that, right?
yeah.
And I do again, feel good pieces are awesome. Telling us about something wonderful your kid did, great. But
Hmm.
I feel like it doesn't benefit the platform from what it was intended to be about.
Mm,
And again, sometimes you need to pick me up, and sometimes it's great. But I'd prefer if it was like feel good stories within work,
mm,
right? Like feel good stories within what we're doing in LinkedIn rather than something overly personal. And there's ways to put those things together, right? Like there's stories about that too. Like bring your pet to work day stories. Love those. Love anything with dogs. So that's me. But yeah, I think that a big percentage, again, like another example is like, don't ask someone out on LinkedIn. Like don't DM someone and be like, hey, are you single? Like that's not, even honestly on Facebook and stuff, it's kind of meh. But Instagram, people get DM'd and they're fine with it. But when it comes to LinkedIn, that's a big no-no, right? That like
mm,
that's even if someone is quote unquote like open in their life, I think if you message someone on LinkedIn about that stuff, it's like an automatic shutdown because it's not what they're here for,
hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So I think separating it is a good idea.
Yeah, I would lean that way more too, for sure. And I'll say, like, at the end of the day, like, if someone wants to share stuff about their life, like, totally, like, your own prerogative, I would just say, like, for me personally, like, I like to have that separation of personal and professional. Um, how do you feel from let's talk like candidate perspective, like candidate perspective and company perspective? How, from if you want to start with one or kind of talk between the two, how is the platform best utilized?
Okay, so I'll jump to company because I think the really cool thing about LinkedIn for companies is you can put all the stuff you put on LinkedIn on your company website, right? Like for the most part, if you wanted to, you can put, you know, pieces from people in the company, that's some things that are exciting that's happening. All that stuff can go on your website if you want to.
Hmm.
However, I'm not checking random companies' personal websites all the time. A, B, if you're selling a product on your website, I'm not trying to look for that stuff. Like I'm not trying to go through all the tabs and look for it. When now the beauty of LinkedIn is I'm already there. And you put stuff on there and it shows up on my feed, you're able to give the job community or the tech community loads of information about your company without doing extra work, right? So
Mm,
you can put something on your website, drag it to LinkedIn, and leave it alone. And it'll show up places. You don't have to go out of your way to bring traffic to, because in a lot of websites, it's like, how much traffic is my website getting? That's a big question. Even with job
mhm,
postings, we're like, how many people are going to our careers pages, stuff like that. You put it on LinkedIn, it's cheat code because you're not having to drive traffic. It's showing up. Then your job becomes how do I make sure it's showing up more? And that's a whole other thing. And then you pay LinkedIn and then they do their magic and then it's on everyone's page. But I think if you're not utilizing LinkedIn to do the heavy lifting, right, of bringing people to your careers page, bringing attention to your company, then you're missing out. If you're only posting jobs on LinkedIn, you're missing out. If you're only putting up just company like highlights that might be in the news anyway, you're missing out. You have to add stuff. Talk about your culture. Talk about events that are happening. Talk about events that happened. Talk about people in your company that won awards. Like, you have an opportunity as a company to highlight every little thing, and it will be big because it'll show up and it'll give, and you'll have eyes on it. Whether or not you get the likes and stuff, that's a whole other thing, again, comments, but you're able to have eyes on these things. And even with posts, like, and this is something that I'm working on, but I don't post a whole bunch on LinkedIn yet. I'm working on it. It's something I want to get better at, because, and then we'll talk about it. It's a big part of, as a candidate or as a individual on LinkedIn, it's a big part of your brand as well, is posting. But even when I do post stuff, even if I don't get a whole bunch of likes, I will have 900 eyes on it. I'll see 900 interactions, right? And whether or not I got the likes or whether or not I got the comments, that's still 900 eyes on whatever I put out there. So imagine what you get when you're a multi-billion-dollar company. So I think when it comes to at least companies, I think it's really important to make sure that you are utilizing that almost free publicity, if you want to call it that. But before we move on to candidates, what are your thoughts on companies?
I agree with everything you said. I definitely think, like, LinkedIn, like we were saying at the very beginning, LinkedIn is such a, I would say, I honestly don't know if there's anything out there that quite compares in terms of scale and impact to LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really the, like, one core central tool that I think you could say, at least in the US, like, my knowledge of the international tools that may be similar or applicable to what LinkedIn's capabilities are is minimal, but at least for the US, I think LinkedIn is that, like, one tool that everyone, for the most part, is connected to. And it's that one spot that you can know that you were, like you're saying, like, you were getting so much organic traffic, although it may not necessarily be specifically to your page. I think you can, as a company, you can know that this is a tool that everyone is utilizing. So I might as well take advantage of that and build my brand, build my network, build my platform on LinkedIn to then essentially, like you're saying, drive people to my company or my website or my podcast or what have you. An interesting thing I'm still learning more about this as we go, but the back end technology and algorithms that come into play on LinkedIn, not only for a company, but if you're a candidate or trying to build your brand, no matter who you are. I was reading that actually how the algorithms work, if you are posting a link, so if you create a post, if you are sharing an external link that is outside of the LinkedIn platform, it is less likely to be viewed by anyone in your network or just the viewers in general on LinkedIn, rather than if you share a link or a post or a page that's tied to LinkedIn. So the workaround that I was reading is actually, if you make a post and you're trying to drive traffic to somewhere else or some forum or platform outside of LinkedIn, the workaround is actually to post it in the comment section of your post rather than in the original post, to kind of trick the algorithm on the back end. But we can get into that a little bit, but there's, like, so much that also comes into play, and is understanding the system and how it's built to work based on why you're on LinkedIn, understanding the rules that you have to play within, and then also understanding how you can work around them to, like, reach your end goal, whether it's making sure your profile gets seen or applying to jobs or making sure your, like, candidates and traffic is coming to your company page.
So I just want to understand. So I want to make sure I understand this properly. So if you post links on LinkedIn that are external, they don't go out as much.
That was my understanding. Yeah, it's less likely. Like, it's basically, like, deprioritized on the algorithm if you're, because they obviously want people to stay on LinkedIn. So the backend algorithm, if you are sharing links on your posts that are outside of LinkedIn, it basically gets deprioritized within the algorithm.
All right, so you heard it here first, or maybe not first, but you heard it here. So if you want to post external links, don't write about it and then put it in the comments and then pin the comment. That is actually huge. Okay, cool. Wow. All right. And then, so we can talk about candidates in general, but do you want to break down like some things that we see that are like good and bad on candidate profiles, kind of
Hmm.
like that? So my thought is like start at the most basic.
Yeah.
Have a profile picture, right? I think it's
I have
better.
mixed feelings about that actually.
Do you? Okay, we can definitely talk about it. But I think because it's a social not a social it's a social work platform, right? It's a social work, we'll call it that.
Hmm.
A social slash professional platform, but since it's like a type of social media, I think having a picture increases credibility to the profile, because there are fake profiles up there, right?
Hmm.
There's fake profiles on there are bots everywhere.
Oh, 100%.
And so I think for me, and I would love to hear your counterpoints, but for me, I think having a good semi-professional picture, and the reason I say semi-professional, you don't want a picture of you on the beach. It's
I
not cool.
straight up, my very first ever LinkedIn profile was like a cropped one that I'd pulled from Facebook because I didn't have any professional photos yet. And I like cropped all of like the background out of it and it was like good enough.
But it was just your face, right?
Yep.
Okay, so I think either a headshot. I think a headshot's good, but
Yeah.
I think currently my LinkedIn picture is a picture of me and my dog. But
Mm.
it's me and my dog, but like normal. It's a headshot, but my dog happens to be there. And for me personally, I think maybe if I was looking for work, I would change it up. But as someone who's just using the platform, not for finding work right now, that's good for me, right? But
Mm.
either way, I think you want a very clear from. And again, I really want to hear your counterpoints because it's gonna be. I know it's gonna be good. But for me, I think a clear picture of your face. Don't have alcohol in there. Don't have anything weird in there. Don't be on the beach. Don't be in the pool. Uh, you could be doing something you like doing, but I would rather not, like, oh, you're rock climbing, so we see your back. I would love to see something where it's your face. Um, just show some personality, but also just like show us who you are so we know the credibility of this profile is that it's legit.
Hmm.
Your thoughts?
Um, Hold on, I'm gathering my thoughts on here so I don't forget stuff you were just saying that triggered my brain. But
Totally cool.
okay, so for candidate profile basics, so a few thoughts. I agree with you mostly, but there's like some devil's advocate thoughts that I have as
Go
well.
for it.
So 100% in this, in the aspect of talking about if you're trying to get your profile seen, yes, posting a photo is going to increase the likelihood of that happening because again, the more you play within the rules of LinkedIn and they like you will get prompts all the time like have you filled out your about section on your LinkedIn, like have you added your skills, like the platform is set up to like the more you utilize it, the more you kind of adhere to the structure they have created for your profile, the more likely your profile is going to get seen. So yes, I will agree in the sense that um posting a photo plays within the algorithm of LinkedIn. I will also say I definitely do think with the like base intent of it being a social platform that posting a photo of your face that you can like clearly see someone's face does also have like a social, emotional, like psychological element of being able to put a face to a name and kind of connect with someone more so knowing what they look like if you're reaching out to them or speaking with them or applying to a job, what have you. Um, I will also add, though, due to obviously a level of bias that can come into play with someone's name or someone's photo, whether it's conscious or unconscious. I do know there's actually a recent, I don't know if it's been adopted across the entire platform yet, but I do know there's a new feature on LinkedIn Recruiter. So if you are a recruiter or a hiring manager or someone who has LinkedIn Recruiter access who is doing candidate searches on LinkedIn, you can select an option to remove profile photos and names from profiles now to remove any opportunity for bias based on name or photo. And you can actually remove that from the profiles and solely look at experience and all the other information that a candidate has listed on their profile.
So devil's advocate,
Yeah.
and this is not a great this is not a great example because it does open a can of worms, but I'm gonna say it out loud and then you shut me down if I'm being dumb. If you're looking for diverse candidates, whatever that definition is for you. Sometimes names and pictures help identify what your team might be missing. Thoughts on that?
So I would strongly disagree with that practice. I think there is like you can't see someone's photo and make a guaranteed judgment based on like let's say if you know you have a predominantly white male team and you are specifically trying to increase the racial and gender diversity of your team, just as an example, I 100% do not agree with making judgments based on names or photos on LinkedIn. I think there's so much that can go wrong there. And ethically, I don't think it's a good practice either because you may not know where someone lands on the gender spectrum. You may be making an inaccurate judgment based on what someone looks like in their photo. I don't think that is a good practice.
So don't judge a book by its cover. Okay, we learned that in 4th grade, and we learned it again today. No, that is interesting though. I think so. I think having that option is great, but I think when you're putting your profile out there to be viewed, it's good to give as much detail as you can. That's where pictures come in. Because I think so. One of the things that I wanted to say actually before I got into this was like you want your LinkedIn to tell a story. I think as an individual on LinkedIn, even as a company, but let's talk about it at the individual. You want your LinkedIn to tell a story, right? So your profile photo tells a story in one way, shape, or form. Also, I would say don't have other people in your profile photos for LinkedIn. It's not a good idea. Don't do it. And not because like again, it's not because people are making judgments based on what we see. It's just like it's just not professional as much if it's you and your 3 buddies.
Yeah.
In a picture for this. So that's one. The other thing becomes background photo. I've seen so many profiles without background photos. Again, background photos probably aren't, you don't have to have one, but again, it gives you an opportunity to tell a story. You can put something on there that talks about what's important to you. It talks about what you work on, what you do, right? So I think utilizing that also is great because it adds to the story. And background photo, there's not much to go on there. You just put a background photo, figure out what's important to you, whether it's something about the company you currently work at, whether it's about something you're passionate about, whatever that may be, go for it. And you can change it as often as you want. But I think one thing that one of the things on a profile that I want to talk about, because I think it's actually the most underutilized thing on a profile, but also can be one of the most important things to tell a story on your profile is the headline. Because I think
the little blurb that comes up right under your name.
Yes, because I think most people, from what I've seen, just put with their job title. 9 times out of 10, it's their job title. It's what they do.
X Amazon, X Meta, X Google.
Don't get me started. Don't get me that makes my skin just itch. I don't like the X stuff at all. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. We can talk about that. But I think your headline should not be your job title. I think your headline gives you an opportunity to talk about a lot of different things. For example, I'll say my headline, not that it's a amazing one, but that's what I chose to do. It just talks about what I like to do. It just talks about who I am. So it says, so my exact one, I probably should have had it pulled up, right? Like that would have been very smart of me. It's cool. So my exact one is, so it says people leader, change enthusiast, media connoisseur, techie, leadership consultant and ally, certified scrum master, job hunt coach, volunteer work enthusiast, and dog dad. Right? So it'll give you a very good idea of who I am, right? I'm a people leader. I'm a change enthusiast. I like media. I like tech. I consult leadership on things. I'm certified in Scrum, which is like a skill set that I'm adding in there. Job hunt coach, so I help people find jobs. Volunteer work enthusiast, I volunteer. And a dog dad, I have a dog, right? And so I think in that way, I'm not writing a paragraph. I'm not writing an actual paragraph, but I'm able to give you an idea of when I look at this person, outside of looking at their job history, what is this person about, right? So I think, and you don't have to do it the way I did it. There's many different ways to do really, really cool headlines, but I think having just your job title doesn't help, because I can go on your LinkedIn and go down to your work history and see your job title, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because nowhere here does it say recruiting manager,
Mm-hmm.
right? It doesn't even, and I should probably add podcast something or other, but it doesn't even say podcast host. It just says, these are this is who I am when it comes to my professional life. But then I also have dog dad, which is very much not professional, but it's something that's very important to my identity. So I think you should use your headline to add to the story of your LinkedIn profile.
Okay. Mine says, human first, talent acquisition second, host of the Dear Tech podcast.
I love it. All right. Look at that plug, guys. All right. Dear Tech podcast, but human first.
I think we can agree upon, and then we can get into all of like the other more detailed aspects of a profile. But I think, like you were saying before, at the end of the day, from a candidate perspective, or really anyone who has their own individual profile on LinkedIn, I think it is an opportunity, like you said, to tell your story and build your brand. So I think that is like a consistent item that we can agree upon in terms of like the overarching purpose of having a profile on LinkedIn. And then I think there are a lot of things that you and I will agree upon. Like I do have a LinkedIn photo for mine, and a background photo, and I've filled out most all of the sections that are on the profile. I think outside of that, though, like the actual specifics of how you go about doing all of that, and how much information you could include on your about section, or recommendations and no recommendations, or how much information you're putting on your descriptions under jobs. Like I think a lot of that stuff is going to be opinion based. Like you're going to talk to different recruiters, different leaders, different hiring managers, different HR representatives who have varying opinions on what's right, what you should be doing, and what's the proper way to utilize the LinkedIn platform. So in my personal opinion, I'll say for everything, like there definitely are some fairly big like core items that I think a lot of our industry can agree upon in terms of how to utilize LinkedIn and the best way to utilize LinkedIn. But outside of that, just as it is with like what's the best resume, or I think that so much of it is going to be opinionated. So at the end of the day, it's totally up to you how you want to brand yourself and represent yourself and what you want to share on your platform. I think the key thing, like we're going into here, is really understanding the nuances of LinkedIn, kind of doing your own research, or listening to us, or going on and poking around and understanding how the platform works, how the algorithms work, and all of the ways that you can leverage and utilize the platform. And then it's totally up to you how you want to embrace or utilize or not utilize all of those functions.
Yeah, well, so it's definitely opinion based, but I think rather like if someone has, let's say, like a bunch of like network referrals, or like I forget what they call it, but like people recommendations, right? Like recommendations, right?
Yeah.
I think like some people might be indifferent to it, but I doubt someone will be like, you have too many, right? So I think from my belief system when it comes to LinkedIn is you have an opportunity to like again tell your story. I would utilize that as much as possible, because and I will say I know people out there. I know this one contracting candidate. Dude was a rock star, meaning he never out of work, probably always had like 2 to 3 contracts at the same time, killed it, right? And billed like $180 an hour, like monster rock. LinkedIn was bare bones, no picture, like had every job, but it was all just job title and time, and that was it. No recommendations, no nothing, right? And not even their real name, like had like their like just like a red, no LinkedIn, but rockstar, right? So they exist, but I think again that's an outlier, and you want to be you're not good. We don't use, we use rules of thumb. We don't use the outliers as our rules of thumb, right? So I would be like, make your summaries, again, tell a story it doesn't hurt to have a bunch of recommendations. It doesn't hurt to
Yeah.
have a bunch of connections. It doesn't hurt to have, and again, and the other thing I'll put is, so let me ask you another one. This is actually interesting because I'm on the fence about this and I don't know. How much detail do you put in your work history? And then we can step away from the nitty gritty. I'm just curious
Yeah.
about.
I think so for me, and how I like when I'm talking to like my mentees or when I'm talking to anyone who's like seeking advice on building their LinkedIn profile, I always, my recommendation is to think of your LinkedIn profile as a digital copy of your resume. So, me, for the most part, like it's basically almost an exact mirror of what you will see on my resume versus what you'll see on LinkedIn. Because I think so often with like recruiters or hiring managers, they are leveraging LinkedIn Recruiter as a digital resume pool, essentially. Like they are going on there seeking out candidates who align to their jobs that they are hiring for or future hiring. So if you don't have all of the all of your skills and tools and technologies you worked with and projects that you've completed and accomplishments that you've had on your LinkedIn profile, that's less likely that your profile is going to get pulled or flagged in an opportunity that you could have been interested in.
So I used to, for my personal self, I used to believe that, or I used to, that was what my LinkedIn looked like.
Mm-hmm.
But over the recent years, I kind of strayed away from it and I just put like my job title and like my basic function.
Hmm.
And more so because like they're gonna get my resume, right? And if as long as you put like the general idea of what you're doing, they're gonna like if you're in the market actively, they're because like that's the thing, right? If you're in the market actively, your resume's out there and you're gonna put your resume out there and you might even attach it to your LinkedIn and like many people do. Or maybe when you're looking you can do it, but when I'm not looking, I don't have all those details on there. One, because my especially for like if you're currently at a job that's changing and it's like I don't want to consistently keep having to like update my profile. But also it's just like I don't know. I don't know what changed in my brain, but like I at one point in the last few years went to my LinkedIn and like took out everything. And I just have my job title and then like a basic, and I might be wrong. I might have actually thought I did that in my brain, and that's not. I'm not looking at my LinkedIn right now, but I believe like I've taken out a bunch of stuff just because. Well, one, I'm not looking, but two, it's like sometimes less is more. But I don't know.
Hmm.
That's one of those opinions you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, from my perspective, I would say like respect your decision. It's your platform, do what you will.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, I'm by no means actively looking right now either, but I think I'm of the mindset of like who knows what I could not be aware of or could be missing out on if I don't have all of that information on my LinkedIn profile. And let's say there's an opportunity out there that was a major step up for me, like double my compensation, fully remote, like paid vacations to Bora Bora, like what have you. And like my profile might not get flagged if I don't have all the information on there. So that's my perspective is like I want to um share like my full experiences and brandings because you never know what opportunity is going to arise from that or who's going to reach out to or connect with you because of that.
Touche. Touche. I agree. Um, how do you feel? Well, actually, not how do you feel because I know how you feel because it's on your profile. But I think it's very important to have like stuff outside of work that you do that is
Mm.
still professional-ish. So I wouldn't put like high school volleyball captain on there, but I would put like volunteer
I
work
had
that you
that kind
do.
of stuff when I first created my
Oh, of
profile.
course, of course. Dude, your first resume has everything possible because you don't have any experience, right? So
Yeah.
it's like I have leadership experience,
Yeah.
track captain, senior year. Um, but I think like volunteer work, like all my volunteer work is on there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's separate and it's on my resume too,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a big part of who I am. And the thing is, in some volunteer capacities, you're doing major stuff. Like there's people out there that are like board members of volunteer organizations. That's work, right?
Yeah.
Essentially. So I think you definitely want to have stuff that you do outside of work that may not be quote unquote direct professional stuff, but you definitely want to have like stuff that you do that takes like mental energy. volunteer work.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, I'll also say looking back at mine, so I think another this is like a smaller tip that I was thinking about previously as well is your date. So I for education. So this is what I have been recommending to people more recently, especially if you were earlier on in your career and or if you were towards the tail end of your career. But this is a tactic I would apply for everyone now is we all know like biases are like an innate part. Well, we might all know, but biases are an innate part of being human. But I think there's like obviously a varying level of someone's awareness around conscious or unconscious biases. But obviously, I think ageism is like a common one that can come into play. And oftentimes you can see a lot of, not necessarily you see a lot, but you know that a lot of, or maybe you've experienced it personally of situations where someone made judgments based on your age and how young you were or how old you were. So what I do recommend to people now these days is for any education that you're listing on your resume, removing the graduation years in school. So I recommend that for people now. And then also with locations, whether it's on your LinkedIn profile or your like hard copy resume, if someone has like their home address, like I would recommend them to remove it because leaving an opportunity for bias based on, excuse me, your location, because you could be someone who's totally cool with commuting 2-3 hours into the office, but the individual who's assessing your profile may have a preconceived judgment if they deem that's not in alignment with what their expectation is or what they're looking for.
Yeah, and I think the open to relocate option is, I love it. I love it a lot because if you really, and you can pick where you're open to relocate to. I think with the date thing, I absolutely agree. I think the only time you should have a date on graduation is if you just graduated, like this year, and that's only because you're probably like, hopefully, if you just graduated from somewhere, you're using their career services to get a job. So like the people that are interviewing you know that, and or if you just graduated from a very prestigious program, and it's like that's what you're using as your ticket to getting in the door. Because I'm, like if you got an MBA from Wharton, and you're getting your interview through Wharton, then you definitely want to be like, yeah, I just graduated from Wharton with my MBA or something like that. But it's only if you're like literally doing it right now. But as soon as you actually graduate and you've had your first job, I agree. Pull that. No one needs to know when you graduated. And it works on the flip. If you graduated many, many moons ago, some people, there's ageism on the other side of there's ageism on the other spectrum. And no one needs to know. So yeah, agreed.
Yeah. What other like cool aspects of LinkedIn from a candidate perspective have you seen, whether it's you leverage it yourself or you have awareness around it, or other people are leveraging a certain aspect of LinkedIn or have utilized it in a perhaps unique way or a cool resource that people should know about?
I think in tech, I don't know if it's a cool resource, but I think it's semi common sense. But I think in tech, having your certs very visible, like having all your certifications on there. LinkedIn now has their own learning situation. I would utilize that. Like if you, LinkedIn Learning is dope. I've done a couple of their classes. I think LinkedIn Learning is very like, again, I don't think it'll
I
get
don't
you.
know. Is that a free resource? If
No,
you
I think you get one for free.
Okay.
Something like that, or maybe your company might pay for you to get a couple
Yeah.
free ones. I think you might have to pay for it. I think that if you get any option of getting at least one of them for free, do it. But I also think it's not going to get you the job, but there is some cool information there. But when it comes to tech, I think again, tech certifications might not quote unquote get you the job, but it will make you more visible. And depending on what tech you're working in, some certs hold a lot of weight. Right, and this is an example I like to use is like Salesforce PD2. If you're a platform developer 2 in Salesforce, there's like 400, or at least when I was recruiting in Salesforce, it was like there's like 400 of them in the country max. So if you're a PD2, you kick ass, right? So I think, you know, display your certifications in tech, and yeah, that's one of the things. I'm trying to think of cool things, but I'm not a very cool person, so I don't know if I come across the coolest of things.
Self-deprecating. I would add for just like different aspects of the platform to be mindful of from a candidate perspective is, so one at a high level, thinking of again for what I was saying before, understanding the algorithm and the back end system of LinkedIn and how best to leverage that to make sure your profile is seen. The more you engage on the platform and the more you utilize the platform, the more likely your profile is going to get seen. So whether that's liking someone's post, commenting on someone's post, making a post yourself, following people, following tags, like the more engagement your profile has on the platform, the more likely your profile is going to get seen in a search from any capacity. So I think it's important to know that. I will also say like it definitely takes a bit of like time and effort. I think as being in like the talent acquisition space in our industry, we definitely are on the platform more so than a lot of individuals. I do know there are, so like connecting with people, making sure you're building your network, connecting with people that you work with, people that you've connected with in school, individuals that you've met at networking events. I think it's a good practice to connect and build your network on LinkedIn. Also, there is the compensation. I'm forgetting the exact title of it. I'm looking on my phone right now, but I think the mobile version's a bit different. You can look at compensation on LinkedIn. So I know there's so many different platforms on there or out there that you can look and do research around compensation, but it's just nice to have like all these different aspects within like a one-stop shop platform like LinkedIn. But you can go and do research around, especially if you're new to the on your career path, or it's a new industry for you, or you're looking for a promotion or what have you. You can go and do compensation searches on LinkedIn for specific jobs in specific locations. So I think that's a good tool and resource. Just like you said, LinkedIn Learning, like I do think there are there's like a ton of good content and material on there. You can take certifications through LinkedIn as well, varying levels of certifications that you can add to your profile, like you were saying. Obviously, the messaging feature on LinkedIn is really nice, and being able to reach out to people and connect with people. They have the option now. This is a new feature, and I also don't know if you know, feel free to jump in, but the new feature now where you can, if you were a candidate and you are interested in a specific company, but you don't see anything immediately open that's in alignment with what you're looking for, you can click I forget what it's exactly. It's like this
Like,
company or
I'm interested in working with this company,
yes,
something to that
yeah,
effect of being like, hey, I want to work here one day.
yep. You can select that button
Yeah.
on the company profile on LinkedIn. So then from the recruiter view, there's an extra filtered tab now for anyone who specifically has selected that option or interest in your company. So it's another good way to express proactive interest in a
Mhm.
company.
Yeah, something you said actually really stuck out to me and made me think. So when it comes to, if you think of, let's say, like 2 decades ago, or maybe even a decade ago, any industry you were in, there's most of the times professionals would, and I know doctors still do this, you buy like magazines and stuff to stay up to date, right? You buy like literature in your industry to stay up to date on what's going on in your field. I think following people, companies that are specifically like, if you're an AI person, follow OpenAI, right? Follow their CEO,
Mhm.
and you will get very often almost that same level of literature on new things that are happening in that industry. And again, I personally think, so I feel like when you're new on LinkedIn, or at least when I was new on LinkedIn, I followed everyone. I liked everyone. I was adding people to my network as if I was getting paid to do it, which is okay, but I don't know if I recommend that as much. You should,
Mhm.
again, like you said, network, add people, but I'm one of the people that think, especially for LinkedIn, add people that you have a reason to add. either you've met them or you've been introduced to them or someone talked about them to you, or maybe they're in an industry you want to get into and you want to ask them specific questions, you want to actually have a dialogue. I don't love just randomly adding people, because especially like even in my like LinkedIn like network tab, there are a bunch of people that are just sitting there because I was like, I don't know you. I don't know the value that I would bring to you, that you would bring to me. I don't understand the purpose of the ad, but I'm not mean, so I'll just leave you right here. Stay there. There are people that'll be like, no, if I think that it's not, there's negative value. But if I'm not sure, I'll just be like, let's chill. Because, and again, when you add someone, write them a note, say something, tell them why you're adding them, give them a hi there. Because again, LinkedIn isn't Facebook 2010 when you were just like random person on the street, add them and just have a Facebook friend for no reason. I think LinkedIn's a little bit more, specific on that. Go for it.
For those who aren't watching the video, I'm raising my hand.
Yeah, she is. Oh yeah, good. Yeah, there you go. My bad. Yeah, I should have said that. I pick on Fran. Fran, you had a question.
Thank you. I disagree with you.
Okay, love it. Go for
it. I take the, so I used to, so back when I was at agency, when I was at an IT staffing agency, I did lean more towards that approach of, if I didn't know you, I wasn't adding you. But then I shifted that mindset, and anyone who requests a connection with me, I accept. Unless obviously you're like sending me inappropriate stuff, or it's something that's like against my morals or my values, like whatever, I would not add someone. But I accept everyone, even if like I get so many sales reach outs and people trying to pitch tools and resources, and I'm like, I just honestly don't respond unless it's something where I think I can actually provide value, or it's interesting to me, or value to me. Because from my perspective, I'm like, perhaps this person's trying to learn from me, or perhaps it would be of value to them. Like it doesn't do anything for me to take half a millisecond to click accept and them to follow me. Like it's no skin off my back. So from my perspective, if someone wants to follow me on LinkedIn, cool, go for it. Perhaps they're trying to learn something, or they want to see what I'm posting, or if I can post something that would help them. Like that's my personal approach. And although I do agree with you from the perspective of, if you were trying to make a conscious effort to apply to a job, or build your business, and you just started your own like small web dev company, or if you are trying to make a conscious effort to build your business, build your network, apply to a job, whatever, I do think messaging people as to why you're connecting with them and why you want to reach out to them, or what's the purpose of the reach out, I do think there's value in that. But I'm also of the mindset of like, the worst that can happen is someone doesn't accept your invite, like Shubho here. Like, click apply. It's not like you're gonna lose a point for Gryffindor or like what have you. Like it's really like not a big deal. I do think a lot of people have different opinions on, if you message someone or if you request someone on LinkedIn, you most definitely should be sending the message. I don't necessarily agree with that. I legitimately don't care. But I do think, if outside of just being in my network, if you are seeking out connecting with me for a specific reason, then yes, I do think a message is important, because like I'm obviously not going to know why you're reaching out to me.
It's funny how different we are, because when I was in agency, I was adding everyone. I think I got to like 1,000+ connections or 500+ connections in like a day. Like I went crazy. Like I remember my first day on LinkedIn, and when I was in agency, I just added everybody, because I was like, I need candidates and I need hiring managers and I need whatever I can get my hand on. So I went crazy. And I think the funny thing is, we're actually very different. I try to respond to, if I get my eyes on it, I try to respond to every sales message I get, because I was on the other end of that. And I will try to respond with, hey, not looking. And it depends, because if it's not a well thought out message, I'll ignore it. But if it's something that I'm like, you spend time on that, or that's a very good template that you're using, I like it. Because I have said like, love what you're doing, totally not interested, but love what you're doing. Or yeah, no, but like I've had another one. I had this one recently, and it wasn't on LinkedIn actually. Someone was calling me at 9 a.m. They called me at literally, it was not, I looked at the clock, and I was, at that time, I had a late morning. I was brushing my teeth, and they called me 3 times. I declined their call twice. They called me a third time. I literally have toothpaste in my mouth. Like, can I call you back? Or can you call me back in an hour? Calls me back exactly in an hour. And I was on another call or something. And like, I didn't say anything, but a part of me was like, and this is me ranting. Sorry, y'all. Soapbox. Don't call someone first thing in the morning to do a sales call. Like, no one wants a sales call first thing in the morning.
We were taught to do that in my agency days.
I know. Me too. Get on the phones. And I'm like, this is stupid. Like, this is so, like, this is why also, though, I think if you're on West Coast, it's awesome to make phone calls first thing in the morning. On the East Coast, because by then I've had my coffee and I'm not like literally opening my email for the first time and getting a call. Like 9 o'clock is the worst time to call. Anyway, sorry, off my soapbox now. But yeah, no, for me, I guess, again, we talked about this, it's opinions, but yeah, for me, I no longer, and again, what I will say, you said follow. Anyone can follow me all day long. I just don't want to follow you. And it's like, because I have had people that I've accepted, and they're posting a bunch of like, I've had 2 experiences. One, political stuff in like American politics, which I just, regardless of what side it is, I don't want to see that on LinkedIn for myself, because not for my work stuff. But I had this one person that added me, and they were dropping like 5 posts a day about Indian politics. And it was like, and my parents are from India, so I know the context, but I was just like, dude. So I unfollowed the person. I didn't disconnect, whatever. I unfollowed. But anyway, sorry, another soapbox that I will get off of now. All right, where are we taking this convo, Fran? What's next?
If you, a few follow-ups to the original conversation here around messaging. So let's do like 3 different kind of personas. If you are a candidate reaching out to someone for some aspect of seeking a job, what should that message look like? If you are a sales rep reaching out to someone at a company trying to get an in, what should that messaging look like?
You said 3. Do you have a third? I'm kidding. I'm not kidding, but I'll let you think about it while I start answering. That's all I've got
in my head right now. Maybe I'll come up with another one.
Okay. Maybe you were going to say if you're approaching a candidate as a recruiter. I don't know. But I'll start with the candidate. Okay. So let me write that down so I remember. So as a candidate. So one, I do my absolute best from the bottom of my heart to respond to every single candidate that reaches out to me about a job. I really do. And I try to pay it forward and pass them along if I can, for whatever. So with a candidate, I think one, you don't want to just be like, hey, do you have a job? Right? Even if you have a
why not, Shubho? Tell the people why not.
No, because, and I've had that happen before, but you don't want to just say, or even if you have a well thought out beginning, don't just be like, do you have anything in your company for me? That shows no initiative. And it's also, I'm sorry, I'm literally this is my job and I have stuff to do. I'm not going to look for jobs for you. Like, I'm just sorry. That's the best I can say. What I would do is, and I'll get to the actual meat and potatoes of what you should say in your message, but what I would do is I'd go on the company website of the person that you're messaging, look for a relevant job, okay? And I would say, and I've actually recently told a friend of mine because they had a question about a different company's job, and I wrote them a template of what they should say. But what I would do is make sure you put that link in your email. Be like, hey, I saw this job. Looks very interesting to me. I think I'm a good fit because of X, Y, and Z, my experience at X, what I did here, whatever. I was wondering if you knew the right point of contact or if you could help me apply to this job. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is if you're very hell-bent on one job, that's the way to do it. If you're hell-bent on a company, I would rather say, hey, I see you work at this company and I think it's a really cool place to work, but I'd love to just talk to you about the company. Can you tell me about how it is to work there. I just want to pick your brain. Someone did that to me, not recently, but a few months ago. And I took the call because they were in a similar industry. And I was just like, yeah, let's talk about it. Why not? Right. And at the end of that call, you can say, hey, do you have anything? Right. Or, hey, I saw this job. What do you think? But I think the very important part about the beginning of those messages are you want to seem like, for lack of a better word, you give a shit. So I would, if you see something on their profile or they posted something recently, you can reference it. You can say, hey, we both went to X college, go Scarlet Knights. I went to Rutgers. But try to be a little bit personal. Don't be fake. Make sure there's some genuine thing that you're talking about. And I've had people recently reach out to me like, hey, saw your episode of Dear Tech about X, was awesome.
Instant in.
You name an episode if you actually use a name and title.
Any sales rep listing, if you download and watch our podcast,
yes,
we accept bribes.
Yes, wow. Yes, I will not delete that from the episode. But I think no, if you listen, but the thing is, if you do that, just know that we're quizzing you on the call as soon as we start talking. What did I say in minute 23? No, I'm kidding. But I think so. Start personal. Second, be intentional on what we're looking at. The other thing I would say, though, is also don't be, I guess greedy is a word, but I've had someone send me like 4 links. Be like, these are 4 jobs I'm looking at. I would love to track down 4 hiring managers or 4 recruiters for you. But again, you have to respect that you're looking for a job. So it's your full-time job to do that. I have a whole bunch of stuff to do. So for me to send you to one person is fine. But for me to send you to 4 is tough. I have had one person who over the course of 3 months asked me about 3 different jobs at 3 different times, which I didn't have a big problem with it. I think at one point, maybe I was like, it's getting a bit much. But it was a dialogue, right? It was like, we talked, they asked me about a job, a few months went by, talked about some other stuff, a couple of days more went by, asked me about a job. So I was like, oh, it's fine. It's personable, but don't just show up and be like, and I've had that happen too. Like literally first message after we connect, do you have any jobs at your company for me? And it's like, I don't even know what you do, bro. Right. So I think again, hi, I'm this person. I do this. This is my experience. This is why I think I'm a good fit for the job. Anyway, that was a very long answer to the first part. Sales. Sales is very tough for you to, and this is speaking from a salesperson, ex-salesperson, and someone who gets a lot of sales messages, a lot of sales messages. Again, which I'm fine with if you do it well. What does that mean? If you're doing sales towards a company and you're messaging an individual, know your shit. What does that mean? If you come at me and you say, hey, I know your company uses X platform and we don't, done. I'm literally done with you. If you say, hey, I know all, like anything, you have to know what you're talking about. And you have to make it not seem like a generic, hey, I'm shooting an arrow in the dark, right? Shot in the darks work from time to time, but when you're messaging me and people like me, they don't work unless you somehow shot in the dark and you hit the exact pain point I'm working on. But yeah, so first one, know your shit. How do you get to know your shit? There's many different ways. Sometimes, like, I don't know if I encourage doing this, but I'll say this is what we did. I would call an org chart in a company that I was targeting, and I would literally go up the org chart and have just conversations about general stuff. But that gave me insight on the company, so I figured out what the pain points were. So when I was talking to a person of influence, I was able to be very, very like deliberate in what I'm talking about, and they were like, "Oh wow, like you've done your homework." So I think with sales, intentionality matters, knowing your shit matters, and don't be too salesy. Like you can start a conversation that doesn't turn into a sales pitch off the bat. You could be like, hey, this is what I do. I just wanted to say hi. Down the road, if you have any issues, let me know. And then leave it at that and then come back later. Because again, sales, and most salespeople know this, it's like 9 interactions before you get to a point where you're going to make a sale. And so it doesn't need to be right now, right? I know you have sales quota this month. I get it. But maybe you're going to sell to me in 4 months or a year or 3 years when I'm in a different company or whatever that is. And I've done that before. I remember one of the first sales calls I've ever made, and I sold to that person when we were both at 2 different companies. And it was very interesting. Just because I just kept the door open. I was like, hey, look, you don't want it. That's totally cool. Let's keep in touch. So I think, and this is a term that I don't like to say, but try not to be salesy. Try not to be like overly like excited and always just on and like, yes, whatever you say is golden and buy my product because I love you. Try to just be a human. Just talk to me. Let's have a conversation. Let's go from there. And then the last one you asked about, recruiters. So this is similar to sales, but this is something that I'm going to say. So there is something that I've heard in the tech world from like tech people, and the quote is, recruiters don't know anything. And so I think if you're a recruiter, you have to know your shit. If you're talking about a technology, you have to know it, right? You don't have to be a developer, but you have to know the environment. You have to know the positions that are in that technology space. You have to know what they do. You have to know all those things first. Second, if you're reaching out to a candidate, read their profile in depth. Don't look at the last job that they had. Don't look at the job they had 3 times ago. Don't look at how many keywords of your search pop up in there. Because, if someone, so like I was a business analyst for like 4 months, and I get hit up, hey, we're looking for a business analyst, and like, because I'm in recruiting, I get furious, right? Because they did not read my profile. They just saw that the keyword matched up, so they didn't even click my profile to open it. They just, off of the list, they said send InMail, and they just sent an InMail. Don't do that. You have to, as a recruiter, you have to know your stuff. You have to be very diligent, and you have to be very intentional in your speech. Hey, I saw your profile. I see that you have 10 years experience in X. I see that you've done this project at these companies. That's why your profile is really cool for my client, if you're an agency, or for my team, if you're at a company. We're looking for your profile exactly. These are the things we're looking for. Do you have a minute to talk? Now, some people might say you should put the salary in the first message. I don't want to have that conversation right now. Personally, I don't put salaries in my first messages. I want to know if it would make sense even at all. Because if you're going to come back with, hey, I'm not looking right now, I don't want to have a conversation, I don't want the salary to just be out there. Just me personally. But again, if you're in New York, you could probably just go on our website and see the salary anyway. But I think the bottom line is, if you're reaching out to a candidate as a recruiter, you have to be on top of it. You have to know everything that you're trying to accomplish. And I know mistakes happen. I've done that before. I've done one of those emails where it's like, hey, candidate name, and I just do the thing and I didn't have the name in there. It happens, right? That's not, it's okay if mistakes happen, but in general, you need to be on top of your stuff. I talked a lot, Fran. You talk now.
Pass the baton. I agree with a good majority of that. I think in like, no matter what capacity you are, what persona you are in terms of messaging people, I think one, it comes down to like your style of communication and like how you communicate with people, and like I think being authentic to yourself is important. I do think from a candidate perspective, being direct with your ask, like if you were reaching out to like me as a recruiter, you're reaching out to a software engineer on the team that you want to apply to, I think being clear, concise, and direct with your intention, why you're reaching out to the person and what you're asking or what you're trying to get out of it. Like, so many people will like just send me their resume, or like no context
or at
like
all.
send me a job and be like, I'm interested in this job, and I'm like, cool, like, not to be rude, but like you need to be like clear and concise. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, when if you post a job posting, like if you like post it from your page, and then someone responds with interested on the comment, like they just comment interested, and it's like,
I know the really like sarcastic person in me wants to be like, congratulations.
No, but it's just, it's like, I get that, but I think we talked about it earlier at some point. When you're looking for a job, that is your full-time job, so you need to do the work, and saying interested is not the work. I'm sorry, continue. I just had to, because I just think it's so funny when they just send you a resume and they don't say anything.
I know. And I think, I'm sure like a lot of people are self-conscious about asking for something, or asking for help, or asking for you to refer them. But like, why else are you reaching out? Like, in my full opinion, like, be direct, be bold, like, go for it. The worst that's going to happen is they are not going to respond to you, or they're going to say no. So that would be like my 2 cents, is clear, concise asks. I definitely do agree. Like, from any of the three perspectives or personas we were talking about, finding some way to personalize or connect with that individual is going to increase your likelihood of them responding for sure. Like finding some way to build a social, emotional connection, whether it's referencing a contact that you both have a mutual connection, or referencing somewhere that you both worked in the past, or referencing like this has worked for me in the past is someone referencing like volunteer work I do, or something that you know it's going to pull something in them emotionally or psychologically, increased likelihood. And then I will also say, I think I talked about this in a previous episode, but reaching out to, if you're trying to get a referral to a job, reaching out to an employee at the company, because the likelihood of a large portion of companies having referral bonuses is high. So that's another incentive for someone to refer you if that's your ask in the message. From a sales rep perspective, everyone has their own pitch style, their own sales pitch, their own style of sales. So do you, but I was on the other side of it too, like in the agency days on the sales side of it, and definitely not my area of expertise, but being on the flip side of it now too, where I get a lot of those messages, people who reach out to me like 6 times in the span of 2 weeks with like the same message, like I don't even know what you call a sales tactic, but like the broken record approach is like, makes me less and less likely to want to respond back to you. I will respond back to as many candidates as I can, but oftentimes my bandwidth is limited and I obviously have a job to do. Sales reps, I typically don't reach out to unless I actually feel like I can help them or they're going to be able to help me in some way. Which is not often because like I don't have a P&L, I don't sign checks, but from a sales rep perspective, I would also be like clear, concise, finding some way to connect like you had stated previously. And then I do think repetition matters, but like 6 times in the span of 2 weeks, or like the broken record approach when you're not getting a response, I don't think is the best tactic. From a recruiter to a candidate, I definitely think I think it's inevitable in the reality in a lot of recruiters' world where sending LinkedIn messages is typically automated in some form or fashion. Like for those who aren't aware, on the LinkedIn recruiter feature, there are multiple aspects where you can create templates, or there are like the cookie cutter templates that are created, and then you simply just plug in the individual's name or the company that they worked at. And some of that stuff, because of oftentimes the volume of roles that recruiters have to work on for their jobs, that is kind of part of the gig. But I think, like you had stated previously, finding opportunities to customize your message and make sure, like just like you said, that you're actually looking at profiles and know your shit essentially before you're reaching out to them, I think is really important in increasing the likelihood of getting a response back.
Yeah, well, and I think for the recruiter part, I think that if you're sourcing, so if you're going out there to message people, that means like you have to be very intentional, right? Because or else you're just getting candidates to apply to your job, go through that, you're fine. But if you're out there sourcing, I remember I used to have this template where it was like 2 paragraphs that were pre-made, but that had an empty line in the middle in all caps. It was like, write something relevant about their profile. Right. And I would delete that. And then I would find something on their profile, and it doesn't take a bunch of time. Right. Like most of it is a part of the template, but then I would be like, I saw your experience in X. This is why I think you're cool, whatever that may be. So I think taking that, but the other thing, one thing that I want to talk about, and this is for all 3, for candidates, recruiters, for sales, your headline, the headline of the subject line of your in-mail matters. Right. So if you're if you're reaching out to me because someone told you about me, your headline should say, X said you were a great person to talk to, right? Because if your headline just says sales or, looking for a job, like I'm just like, all right, whatever. But if it says John said, hey, Shubho, or not hey, Shubho, but if it says John told me to reach out to you, like, oh, what did John want to say about that? Right? So I think those are the way to do it. Or if you're doing sales, be like, is I keep using Salesforce as an example. I like the company. Is your Salesforce environment not working out the way you want it to, or something to that effect? If you've done the research and you know that I need help, right, or whatever. And then for recruiters, there was a bunch of different things. So when I was just trying to increase the number of candidates that I had access to, I would say, like, do you want to pulse on the market? Like, and my message was, hey, I'll tell you how the market's doing, right? Or it's like, hey, like, are you looking for $200,000 job, whatever? I don't know. Like, I don't even know if that's a good way to do it, but you want to make sure that your headline is good, because if I'm someone who is, if you're reaching out to, like, say, like some sort of a manager or a VP, they're getting dozens, if not more, emails a day. So yeah, but that's another thought that I had.
Cool. Let's tie back up a little bit more from a company perspective. So what do you like, how do you think companies can best utilize and leverage the LinkedIn platform to not only build their brand, but also attract talent, whether it's for an immediate role or building some level of rapport virtually to build that attraction for perhaps a future hire?
I think for companies, you want to create dialogue on LinkedIn. I think, and this is purely an opinion, this is me totally just thinking right now off the top of my head, but I
Most of the
think
stuff that comes out of our mouth is
facts. I will delete that from the final. People don't need to know that. Just kidding. But
it
I
has
think,
merit, but opinion based.
no, yeah. I mean, because that's the whole point of this, right? Like, we are talking about what we know is going on, but then also how we see it.
Yeah.
And we hope you find value. But I think that the goal should be, and this is not for if you have a job right now that you need, that's a little different. But I think if you're trying to create a bunch of people that follow your company, I think that's what you want, right? I think when you have a company page, you want a bunch of people that are consistently keeping an eye out for, ooh, you know what? They post cool shit, right? And the reason for that is because when you do have a job and you do post the job, it's going to go on their page because they've either clicked I don't know if there is a like a ring icon or whatever, whatever. They've clicked it to be aware. So I think one of the things you want to do as a company is you want to create dialogue. So if you're posting something that is a update, at the end, there should be something there to create dialogue. It shouldn't just be, we have, 100,000 new followers, thumbs up. That doesn't create dialogue. We have 100,000 new followers and something, right? 100,000 new followers, and blah, blah, blah. Thank you and something else. You want to create as much dialogue as possible because you want, likes are great, shares are great. I personally think as a company, you want comments. You want people talking about it. You want discussions in the comments, because then not only are people engaging with what you posted, they're engaging with each other, and you're doing a service to the greater good. And I'm getting a little preachy here, but I think that's always a good thing. But I think as a company, that's that. And then when you have a job, if you've done the first part, there'll be more people that are looking at it. There'll be more people that are caring. And automatically what you post kind of sort of shows your company culture and your company values. So if you're able to portray your company's culture and values in a really good way, in a really transparent way on LinkedIn, when someone applies, automatically, and I don't like the term culture fit, but they are a culture fit / ad. They are someone that embodies or sees themselves embodying what your company's about. And then you don't have to worry about, is this person going to be good for our environment? It's almost, you've done some vetting already because they've seen how much you posted. Because if you post stuff they're not about, they're not going to, follow. They're not going to follow you, and they're not going to apply to your jobs, which can be a good thing. Right. So I think that you want to really create that dialogue. What do you think? Do you agree with 30% of what I said, but then not the 70% of what I said?
I think I agree with everything you said so far.
That's the first time today, y'all. It's the first time today.
We're doing good. But yeah, I 100% think from a company perspective, LinkedIn is an opportunity for companies to build their brand, cultivate a following, build engagement, showcase their culture, the work that they're doing, the opportunities that could be available to you. I think it's like a non-negotiable aspect of branding that like if companies have the resources and bandwidth depending on their size, 100% should be leveraging. I think it's like an easy bucket that they can fill to build their brand. Anything else we missed? Wrap up.
So we can wrap up. There's one thing that I want to say that might not controversial, but it might not be appreciated by everyone. But it's there's something that, at least for me, there's a thought I have on LinkedIn, and it's something that we learned when we were kids from our parents, and it was, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. For me on LinkedIn, that is my rule. I don't think, because look, again, discussions are good, disagreements are fine, but I don't think LinkedIn is a place for tearing people down. It doesn't make you look good. Then there's no value to it in any way, shape, or form, right? If you again, if something's posted that is horrible, right? Unfollow the person, right? And you can say something and that's fine, but there's no value in it because you're not changing anyone's mind. You're not doing any change. You're just making noise in the wind. So my thing is, I really don't think, and again, we talked about it, I don't like politics on these platforms. It's not that's not what I'm there for. But let's say someone posted something that's against your political views and beliefs, unfollow them, because commenting doesn't do anything, and it just creates more negative. And I don't think LinkedIn's the place for that. I don't think anywhere is the place for that. I think negativity is something that we can all live without. But that's for me personally. So if you disagree with me, I respect that. And I didn't mean you, Fran. I meant the general world. But if you do too, I respect that. But I think if we could live with the whole, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all, it would be a better platform altogether.
Yeah, I think that could be applicable to all social media for sure. But
for sure,
definitely with LinkedIn, yeah, I do see, like, so in my opinion, there's so many, I think a political conversation could go like another 4 hours, so I'm not even going to go there, but I'm of like the mindset that I think there are so many things that are politicized that shouldn't be, that may impact you at work or your career or your brand that you're trying to portray or build on LinkedIn. So if you're called to share something that's important to you, totally go for it. But I am 100% in agreement in like the rhetoric of, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it. So it's like, if something, exactly, it's like if someone posts something or shares something that draws some like very negative emotions out of you, like I would be personally of the mindset, like, go deal with that yourself. Like tearing people down or saying negative things, like 100% not the place for it. Being a professional platform, but I think I see that stuff fairly often. It's really sad and disheartening. But I do think like underlying thought of what you're sharing is like being mindful. This is a social platform. The brand you're portraying or the persona that you're putting out there, comments that you're typing, whatever, like that stuff is out in the internet and out to the world. So I think it's important and mindful of being respectful and leading with empathy and being mindful of what you're putting out there.
Yeah, solid. So I think what I'll say, and then you wrap up. But what I'll say at the end is, utilize LinkedIn. No matter if you're in tech, I think LinkedIn is a wonderful tool. You can tell your story, you can engage with people, you can make friends. Go for it, but be as intentional as possible. If you're not making a decision, that itself is a decision on your profile. So make decisions, be very intentional, and have fun.
Mm-hmm. I will add, I think some of like the core items that we discussed today is, one, LinkedIn is an awesome platform. I think it's important to understand the rules of the game that you're playing within, whether you're a company or a candidate, understanding the true ins and outs of the platform, and then kind of corroborating,
Corroborating, but that's not the word either.
I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, understanding where was my
Put them together.
understanding the rules of the platform, how to play the game, how to play within the rules in conjunction. There we go. That's a better word. In conjunction with what you're trying to accomplish and what you're trying to get out of the platform, whether it's from a candidate perspective or a company perspective, and then taking action based on that. Understanding that the more you utilize the platform, the more engaged you are with the platform, the more likely your profile is going to get seen or your company page is going to get seen. Building your brand, like this is an opportunity for you to build your brand, build your network, put out there what you're trying to get back, and cultivate your brand. I think storytelling is such a big part of the job search or attracting talent or gaining an audience for your company. And then also LinkedIn etiquette, I think, is important as well, and understanding how to kind of conduct yourself on the platform. So I think that is all for the day. We're wrapping up. Thank you all so much for joining. Listen in to our next episode when we drop. And thank you for being here.
Well, I was just going to say, LinkedIn did not sponsor this episode, but LinkedIn, if you want to, you know where to find us. But until next time, sincerely, Fran and Shubho.